Hi everyone, this is Cate and I'm broadcasting from Melbourne, Australia and it's 8 a.m. on a Monday morning here and it's 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in America, so just feel once again a deep gratitude and hello to everyone that's listening in live. And yes, feel welcome to ask any questions and any, actually you could just write any comments or any questions you'd like. I'm recording this, a video recording, which I'll put up under my YouTube channel, just called Cate Greaves, and I'll give it a title, a topic. Didn't really have a topic for today, but just felt something. I'd seem to have these things come really into my mind in the shower each morning. So I actually had like the big shift in when I was in the shower a couple of years ago, and this morning it sort of came through about how we don't have to earn our perfection. There's nothing we need to do. But before I do talk about that, I'd just like to start off with a prayer to the Holy Spirit. And the reason why I do, I think that's Jacqueline writing, I get aha moments in the shower as well. Yeah, and Hal has. So there must be something. Oh, it's Shirley. Thank you, Shirley. Yeah, there must be something about that space where what I've worked out is that when you're in the shower, there's nothing to do except be in the shower. I think what I've noticed is that as you sometimes wake up, even if you've got some peace of mind, there's some thoughts about what do I need to do today? So you might start thinking about your day. Hopefully you're joining with God in the morning and meditating and quietening the mind and just sinking into peace and, you know, doing whatever practices that you have on however you practice this spiritual path. And there's no right or wrong way. It's really just like to have some sort of intention about the day. And then I think as we, you know, I usually shower in the morning, as we step into the shower, we're in a space where there's nothing to do. You've already sort of set up your day, like, hey, I've got to sort of do this or go to work or make this personal, do some shopping or whatever. So I've always felt that must be the reason why in that shower moment where there's nothing to do but wash your body and your hair, you're completely one with what you're doing. I noticed it also years ago when I used to get my nails done. I used to have false nails and I used to have to get them fixed up again every 3 weeks. I don't have them anymore, but they actually used to get them for sewing. Believe it or not, they're really strong, and I used to do a lot of sewing work where I'd push the needle with the nails, and they were really handy. Plus they look nice. I noticed when I was getting my nails done that I would just be so fully present because I couldn't do anything else. Hal's saying, and maybe it's because it's an enclosed space. It could be. It's just like you can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. You're contained and you're just there. Anyway, that's a long story to get to the fact that what came through was I actually had lots of ahas, or it's probably not so much ahas anymore because I think my mind is got a lot of those. I've got a lot of realizations. I think it's more what it feels like to me, in my mind, it feels like a deepening. It feels like I've understood something on a certain level, and it's going deeper. And I was just listening to the tail end of Adi Shanti's talk, the last 10 minutes, as I was getting ready to come on, and he was saying it's this deepening, and that's why I notice the name of this show is Awakening Together. It's not Awake Together. And I notice on Backgap they talk about, they call it spiritually awakening. Maybe they say people, but I would say minds, because I don't think there's actual people. I actually use the word minds now for everyone, because that's really all we are. We're a mind. So we're either in our egoic mind or we're in the mind of God, a perfect, whole and complete mind. And the Course in Miracles has been my path. And Jesus, well, there was somebody identifying themselves as Jesus, and I think that, to me, that sounds, it's something that was able to allow a name to be given to the mind that had awakened. So that was the name that was allowing us in this dream to be really comfortable with what was coming through Helen Schuckman. But really, it's the Christ mind. That's really all it is. And we are that mind. That mind that wrote the Course in Miracles is actually our mind. And what came through for me a couple of weeks ago was that sorry, I'm just turning my heater off. What came through for me a few weeks ago was that when I can actually write the Course in Miracles myself, then I can stop reading it. I'll stop in terms of, and I'm not saying that that me as Cate in this body has to sit down and actually write the Course in Miracles out. What was coming through from this Christ mind that comes through all of us, that is the Holy Spirit or the Christ, and we might call it Jesus, and we've given it a label, and that label is useful because, as I said, it allows us to accept these teachings. And we labelled it Jesus, but Jesus was just a man, like Hal, like Shirley, like Cate. He was just an entity with a label, and his mind awakened to these, to who he truly is. And these are words that we're trying to put words to an experience or a beingness or a state of mind. So when he came through Helen, he had to identify himself as Jesus because that was what was acceptable. That we know him as Jeshua or whatever name is helpful. And I did join with Jesus on many occasions on my journey. And so, what he's actually doing is this Christ mind. It wrote the Course in Miracles, and it's probably written many other spiritual texts as well. And it's really dependent on that mind that's getting this information coming through it, how clear it can be of its own conditioning. And obviously Helen was at that stage in her journey even though she didn't connect with these teachings that were coming through, I think she had, possibly on some level, a love for Jesus. But she had conditioning that she just couldn't accept the teachings. But she felt really obliged to continue taking these notes down for us so that we could have a beautiful text. We could have, 365 lessons. And that's why I'm really deeply grateful that she and Bill put their careers on the line, because they obviously could have, they laughed at, and they did. This did come through as they were towards their later years. So possibly that's why it came through, so they didn't. Look, who knows? I'm not even going to go there, really. What I really want to focus on is the teachings. And, well, for me, I needed to be like a student. I realised that I had no idea. Hal's just said, I don't think it would have come through as it did if she accepted the teachings. Yeah, that's a possibility. Who knows? It's very hard to know, because a lot of people that do get channeled things coming through them, they do accept the teachings. They love them. They're putting them into practice. But yeah, let's not speculate on that. It was what it was. I think earlier on Jesus was asking her to try to practice them. But anyway, it's really funny, because one of the reasons why I actually accepted the Course of Miracles was because Helen didn't do them. I was very suspicious. I didn't trust anybody or any teachings at the time I first picked up the Course. And I saw a little video of Helen just saying, look, it was beautiful. I knew it was the truth, but I couldn't do it. And in that moment, I thought, she's not pushing this. She's not saying, I channeled this thing and it's the greatest and I've done it and I'm awake. And so in that moment, I sort of became very, very interested in the teachings, because no one was pushing them. And no, there wasn't anyone saying, this is the answer. The answer was just presented in the form of a book, and then I could do it however I liked. So look, I haven't done the Holy Spirit prayer, but I will do it now, because it's really good to, wherever you go, whatever you do, every morning, if you're going anywhere, meeting anyone, you might be thinking, I'm not sure how I'm going to go with this meeting or this day. And you invite the Holy Spirit to be with you. And so it's really good practice to consciously ask the Holy Spirit to be with you. He's always with us, but we have to be willing to ask for his guidance. So that's the reason why I do a lot of Holy Spirit prayers, because it helps with really getting ourselves out of the way and getting this guidance. So I'll just do a quick prayer. Holy Spirit, you be in charge. I give you this day. I give you my mind. I give you my body. I surrender to your wisdom. Please speak through me. Please bring me the answers that I need to know when I need to know them. Amen. And So I decided today that I was just going to talk. I wasn't really going to have a particular topic, although I have put the topic of today because Shirley just asked for a topic, and it really doesn't matter because everything I talk about will be included, because it's sort of all one sort of holographic teaching. And so one of the things that came through in the shower this morning was about our perfection and how we don't need to earn it. So we're not becoming perfect. We're not doing those spiritual practices to become more perfect. We have to realise we already are. We already are that now. We're completely whole. We're completely innocent. We are completely guiltless. We are holy. We are the perfect love of God right now. We don't need to go anywhere. We don't need to lose weight. We don't need to be better looking. We don't need to be more intelligent. We don't need to be richer. We don't need to be smarter. We don't need to be funnier. We don't need to be anything else than exactly what we are right now. As we are right now. So wherever you are right now, you are perfect. Perfect, whole and complete. There's nothing you need to do. And that's how we were created. We were created in God's image. And that's not a body. That's a mind of perfect love. So if God is perfect love, then so are we. We are this love. We are connected to this love all the time. We can't move away from it. So we can go about our day and we can muck up in every possible way. We can gossip, we can judge, we can do everything that the Christ mind asks us not to do. And when we get into bed that night, we are still perfect. No matter what we have done during that day and how we think, well, I judged that person, I criticised them, I talked about them. Excuse me. You know, I yelled at the TV, I thought this about Donald Trump, I was angry with the shopkeeper, I was annoyed with my niece or nephew for taking drugs and I thought they should be doing something better. All these judgments that go through our mind throughout the day that are just a commentary on life, which Jesus calls the ego. It doesn't matter how much we have that commentary in our minds during the day. Our perfection and who we are is still there. It's there all the time. It doesn't matter what we do. We could murder someone and our perfection is still there because it's non-compromising. That's why it doesn't matter what anyone does in this world. Who they truly are cannot be escaped. You can't run away from your perfection. I remember this was getting really drummed into me over the years of my journey because I would beat myself up. I was meant to be a spiritual person and I was failing all the time. And I would judge and I'd get fearful. And I didn't want to go to things where, you know, I didn't want to be around people. And I remember seeing this little video on well, it was a YouTube video, but it was put up on Facebook. And it was this little girl running along the road. Her mum was taking a video of her just on a sunny day. She would have been about 2 or 3 years old. And all of a sudden, she saw her shadow and she got scared by it. And she tried to run away from it. And she started crying and screaming and running in all different directions and turning around and looking at her shadow. And I mean, it was funny in terms of that she couldn't get away from it. It was there. And as I looked at it, the Spirit said, this is your perfection. You might not see your shadow, but it's there all the time. It doesn't matter how much you muck up. It doesn't matter how much you judge. It doesn't matter how guilty you feel about the things you think you've done in the past. And as a mother of 2 children, I was experiencing a lot of guilt at that stage. And the Holy Spirit was showing me in my mind through different things. And that little video is still such a beautiful reminder that who we truly are, we can't escape it. We cannot get away from it. And isn't that the most joyful thing when you think about it? It feels really, really joyful to know that we can never, ever, ever be anything other than our perfection. And while we dilly-dally around with thoughts of guilt, thoughts of fear, thoughts of judgment of others, they're not going anywhere. Those thoughts don't go anywhere. It doesn't matter, because the only reality is the reality of God, and our perfection is what He's created us as. And that's why He says this is a dream. It's what the dream concept is pointing to. That while you're judging and criticising, it's not bad. It just doesn't go anywhere. It has no effect on anything. Nothing can affect the will and power of this perfect love of God. So all we need to do is just see that those thoughts don't go anywhere, they don't do anything, and that we're not guilty, and that any thoughts or judgment or anything we've said to anyone else hasn't had any effect in terms of who we truly are. And we don't have to earn it. So in this moment, right now, we're perfect. And it's always this moment. You can't get away from this moment. It's like running away from the shadow. Try to get out of this moment. Try not to be in the present moment. It's impossible. You're always in the present moment. The past is gone. The future is not here. Those are thoughts about something that may or may not have happened. All you know is what's here and right now. and in this moment, if you can feel your perfection, if you can feel you've joined with God, which is perfect love. That's all God is. God's not a person. God doesn't have an entity. God is a creator, but it's different to how we've got all these concepts that we try to put onto God. But what He is, and even the He, what God is everything. But everything that God is love. Is perfect love. Sparkling, perfect love. So it's really important, I think, for my journey, it was really coming to see that even when I was, practicing my Course in Miracles lessons and I was joining with the Holy Spirit, I still mucked up at times. I still gossiped. I still talked about other people, and, you just say, well, that's the ego. And so rather than beating myself up, because that can, or thinking, that you're not getting this and you're failing, He just says, choose again. And the reason why He says choose again is He's saying that there's nothing that you can do to be anything other than this guiltless, innocent essence of God, this Christ self, which is absolutely holy and perfect. And that's who we are. And we've always been that, and we always will be, and we're that now. There's never a time that we weren't that. But what He does say, He does help us that when you are judging, to be mindful of it. And He says, okay, so you're going to muck up. You can't get away from your holiness or your perfection, just like the little girl trying to run away from her shadow. There's nothing you can do. You've got your perfection. You may not be experiencing it, but it's there. So that's the teaching, and that's beautiful to realise. Now, one of the ways to really feel into this perfection is to see it in others, because the teaching is that everything outside of you is in your mind. And as everything outside is within, and everything within is out. It's one. It's one. It's oneness. And the teaching is that we're one with everything. So on our journeys, we're asked to see the perfection, which is the forgiveness. So the forgiveness that the Course talks about is looking and watching and judging not. But there's also another teaching in the Course, and it says, see your brother as innocent, see your brother as guiltless. And I was practicing those suggestions, teachings by the Christ mind that's trying to help us realise our Christ mind. So what's between where we are now and realising this Christ mind that wrote the Course in Miracles, that is ours for the taking? What's in between? What's blocking? The blocks. And what are the blocks? The blocks are the judgments, the fear, and the guilt. And how do we shift those? We don't. The Holy Spirit does. And what's the Holy Spirit? It's a symbol that's helping us. We have to accept this symbol. And the reason why we have to accept it is because it's about surrendering. So He's unwittingly getting us to surrender. And surrendering is a huge part of the journey home. Because how are you ever going to have another way, have another way of thinking, or go beyond your thoughts, is if you can't be taught. And that's why the Course talks about each mind will come to a state where they want another way, or they want a different way. And in that moment, when you want another way, you're surrendering. And so the symbol of the Holy Spirit, which they call the voice for God, is something that's in our minds that can teach us, and we've all got it. And it's a combination, for me, it was a combination of doing the lessons of A Course in Miracles, applying the lessons to everything that came up in the day, and also reading the text. It's very, very important to get a real grasp of the text. And sometimes it can take many, many many times going through the text to get it. And nothing is wasted, even if you read a couple of pages and you say, oh, I've got no idea what I just read, which is how I felt when I first read the text. I knew it had the truth, but I didn't quite understand it. Every time you join and listen in with a teacher, every time you join a class, every time you do something that is taking you away from just sitting in your ego's thoughts, it's helping. There's not one thing you can do that doesn't help on your journey. And even sitting in meditation, and it's getting this guidance, and it's like the guidance is genuinely just a feeling. It's like very, very difficult to explain what guidance feels like. And it's probably more intuition, but it's sort of more than that, because it's sometimes very clear directions on what to do. And as we surrender, so we're asked in the Course to surrender to be taught. So we have to, first of all, come to a place in our mind where we say what we've been doing hasn't worked. And then we need to surrender. And as we say, Holy Spirit, you be in charge. Well, Holy Spirit, help me. They're the little surrenders. And as we keep doing those little surrenders each day, each moment, every time, you might be meeting your mother or your father or your children or your friends, and there might be some tiny little thought about, we had an argument last time, or I think this, or I text them and they didn't text me back, or they upset with me. All those little tiny little day-to-day things that the ego's commentary, it's always got whole commentary about everything. We need to start there. That's where we start. And we just say, okay, I'm meeting my friend. Maybe I said something to her last time, or maybe I forgot to wish her a happy birthday on her birthday and I sent the text the next day. She's very attached to birthdays and birthday wishes. How am I going to be when I turn up to have a coffee or lunch with her? And then you might start to feel into your guilt, or feel into your feeling of unworthiness. I'm hopeless. I always forget everyone's birthdays. Just notice what the ego is bringing in. And first of all, we're just asked to notice those thoughts, because originally those thoughts just are running us. They're just running the show, as they say. So rather than walking in to sit down with your friend for lunch or a coffee and just being fully present with who they are, you're stepping into that situation with already some guilt or some unworthiness or some trepidation of how are they going to be with me. So you're not coming with a clear mind. And so what we need to do is we need to stop and we need to pause and we need to give everything in our mind to the Holy Spirit. And we need to say, Holy Spirit, you have this guilt that I didn't remember her birthday, or I forgot to buy a present, or I did this or I did that, or I judged them last time, or I said something about them and they found out, and whatever it is, because these are our daily lives with the ego, and these are the situations. They're just normal, everyday, egoic fears and judgments and blame and guilt. And we just need to say, Holy Spirit, you have this judgment. Holy Spirit, you have this guilt I'm feeling. Holy Spirit, you have my lunch with this friend. You be in charge. Holy Spirit. So I give everything over to the Holy Spirit and I just give it over. So my job is to notice what's in my mind, not to judge it, just to say, okay, that's what's in my mind. I'll give it to you, Holy Spirit. And then how I would feel is I would feel lighter, I would feel freer. I've given everything to the Holy Spirit. And then I would say, help me see this differently. Now, when my mind has got free of all those judgments and what's going through it, I'm then present. Help me see this differently. And so then I'm in a clear space of non-judgment. And then anything can come in. The truth can come in then, and the Holy Spirit might bring something like just be love. Sometimes the guidance is just listen. Just be there for her. And so what happens is that when you're walking in to meet that friend, when you've handed over all the thoughts in your mind, however you do it, it's really constantly in it being willing to hand those things over and to step into that situation where you're meeting with someone. And then our next guidance is to be present with that other mind as they truly are. And that is their Christ self. So while you're stepping in and you're sitting there maybe having lunch with a friend, you might notice thoughts that are coming in. And those thoughts could be a judgment about how they look, how they speak. You might be judging what they're saying. You might be judging the meal. You might be judging the waiters. You might be judging their decor. You might be judging the weather. So basically these judgments block being present with just what is. So we just, once we get into the restaurant, cafe, and we're noticing that we're in a judgment mode, we just once again offer them all up. We might take a moment, say, Holy Spirit, just take all those judgments. I want to be present with my friend. I want to be truly present. And then as all those judgments drop away, we look to the true self. And this has got nothing to do with eyes and ears. the looking is not with our eyes. It is a mind that's seeing. It's vision. It's nothing to do with seeing. Even though vision, they call it vision, they call it seeing, we think it's something to do with the eyes. But it's actually being in a space of mind where you're present with their holiness. You're present with their innocence. You're present with their complete guiltlessness. You start to experience them on a different level. And it takes practice, this experiencing being with someone as who they truly are. And you'll be talking about all different things. It doesn't matter what's being said. What's being said is surface. There's a lot of talk in this ego's world, and it doesn't matter what's being said. What's important is how you're holding that other person in your mind, how it's a presence or a beingness with them. And you may even find yourself saying to them, you know, during the conversation, something along how perfect they are. And then they need do nothing to be perfect. They already are. And that started coming out of this mouth lots and lots as I went through my journey. And there was no embarrassment. It felt really, really beautiful. People love hearing it, even though they may have a slight resistance to it. It's going in. When we hear truth, it reaches into the right mind. It's reaching into the true mind as we know it. We're remembering slowly who we are. And the reason why the Christ mind in A Course in Miracles is constantly asking us to see our brother as perfect, to see our brother as one with us, to see our brother as holy, to see our brother as their Christ self, and to overlook every single thing else, completely overlook it. Don't pay any attention to anything they say, anything they do. The reason why we're asked to do that is because that's how we get to experience our innocence, our holiness. Because as we see without, we see within. So if I say or think someone is a loser, someone's terrible, someone's crazy, someone's horrible, every time I think that and express that, the mind says, I am that. Every single thing you judge outside of you, your mind confirms, I am that. And this is the loop of projection. The unworthiness in the unconscious mind projects it out, looks like it's outside of us. He's found the hungry dogs of the ego, go scavenging out to find the unworthiness, the judgment. It finds scraps and it brings it back to the mind. And it says, see, it's out there. And this is when we're mindless. We think it's outside. We think that whatever we think that others are a certain way. And what Jesus is pointing to is that that's in us, because we're the one ego and we're also the one Christ mind. So the one ego, there's no difference in the ego. The ego is in every mind. It's fragmented and it's got us sleeping and believing. And it's looking outside and it's saying, it's pointing its bony finger. It's like a dead skeleton, bony hand with its big index finger pointing out, saying, you are the cause of my unhappiness. And it keeps us asleep, believing that. And then Jesus comes along and says, no. Bring me anything you think anyone is. Anytime you think anybody is doing something to you, bring that to me and I'll give you another way of seeing it. And it's beautiful lessons. Above all else, I want to see this differently. Above all else, which means there is nothing else I want to do except see this differently, because the way I'm seeing it is hurting me, it's upsetting me, it's keeping me depressed, it's keeping me anxious, it's keeping me in fear. We have to surrender. It's the only way to peace. We absolutely have to keep surrendering. The Course uses the concept of the Holy Spirit and it works. There is an essence that will help us once we surrender and we say we want this peace of God above anything else. I want the peace of God. I want it above being right. I want it above being beautiful. I want it above being successful. I want it above being smart, being funny, being rich, being famous, being healthy. That's a big one. Because the ego can keep you stuck in sickness. Hal has written, I want to see the face of Christ in myself as well as my brother. The way we see the face of Christ in ourselves is seeing it in our brother. We have to see it in our brother. We have to see every single, what seems like people here, every single one of them as Christ. Everyone. There's no exceptions. If you exclude one person, you can't experience your true Christ self in fullness. And there will always be temptations. The ego will say, yes, you can do that with all these people, but not these ones. You know, might even be saying about the president or Hitler or something. There's no exceptions. But also, what we've got to notice is that the minds that have been asleep to their perfection have all they've done is believed their ego. And the ego says, get rid of those people or get them changed or get them somehow different and you will be happy. And we have to notice that that's what egos do, and that's all. We can't be upset with our brothers for believing their ego, because we did. The ego says if they changed or if they were different or if they were out, if I can kill them or if they died, I'd be happy. And just notice how egos do that. And it's not bad and it's not good, it's just what the ego does. That the ego is seek and do not find. So you may be looking at President Trump and saying he wants to build a wall. Now he could spend millions, billions on a wall. And then terror pops up somewhere else. There's no way out. This world is the ego's world, and the only way out of it is to purify your own mind and come to it from love. And then you see they're not bad. People do, you know, they're just in their ego. It's a false self. It's a false mind that thinks that it has to protect itself from outside of it. It's asleep. People are just having little sleeps here. They're just believing that they're a body, they're limited to a body, and they've got to protect it somehow. And that they believe that when they die, or when their body dies, that they go with it. And so this is what these beautiful Christ teachings are, is that we're mind. No one can shoot my mind, because my mind's not my brain. My brain is part of the body. What's speaking to you now? Where's this coming from? Where are these thoughts of what to say coming from? You can't look into the grey matter that's in this head and say, oh, there's a thought going through. Thoughts can't be found. You can't find your mind. It's impossible. So what's animating this body? It's either being animated by an ego, that's fear, or it's being animated by love. It'll be used as a communication device, which I've given my whole life and my whole mind. I've given everything over to the Holy Spirit, to Jesus, to love. And it's just a trust. I've got a deep, deep, deep trust, and it's going deeper. In my mind's, I've just got a full commitment to these teachings and to being a teacher of God, a teacher of this wisdom, because it is a way out of our suffering mind. And what I'll talk today about, practicing seeing your brother as his Christ self, is the way we experience our Christ self. And Jesus says, once you have forgiven one person completely, you have forgiven everyone. And that's a really important thing. It's really an important lesson that we must focus on the one person that we find hardest to forgive and work these teachings. We have to really work hard. We have to have he talks about abundant willingness. You have to have this abundant willingness to be wrong. And we will go through fear, but we won't be left there. We will come out the other side. We will come to have a knowing. We will know what the truth is. It will be realised in our mind. We will have this truth. All we need to do is stay on this path and practice it. And also be easy on ourselves when we muck up. Because as I said, even when you muck up, you've still got your perfection. There's nothing you can do to not be your true self right here, right now. And there's only a couple of little blocks. But that's who we are. It doesn't matter what you do. It goes nowhere. Only love has any reality here. And the real world is just God. It's God's in everything. It's all God. It's all love. Every single thing here. It's not created by God in a sense as that he says God knows nothing of this world. It's just this mind sees it differently. It sees that God is in everything because the mind is back to God's mind, and it's seeing the holiness. It sees the holiness of a blade of grass. It sees the holiness of an animal, of a snake, of a spider, of an ant. It sees everything in its holiness. And it loses its, you lose the identity of the I. Okay, I'm getting on to the hour now. I'll stop looking at the time. So I've been talking for an hour. And it's been wonderful joining with you, and blessings to everyone. I love you, I honour you, and I bless you. And just bless everything today. Just bless it for its holiness. And I'll say goodbye now. I won't read a prayer. I've run out of time. But I love you, and thank you, Regina. And thanks, Shirley, and thanks, Ken, and thank you, Jacqueline, for all you do, and for everyone else. Deeply grateful. Okay, I'll hand the mic back now. Okay, I'll finish up this. I'll finish up this recording now, and thank you for joining me, and talk soon. See you next time. Just gotta finish this up. Bye-bye. Love you.